All right, everybody, I've got big news. I've discovered my new love, which is, wait for it, root beer flavored kombucha.
Yum. Sometimes, just for fun, I like to add up the cost of all the subscriptions I pay for and hardly use, and then I attempt to cancel, but then get too flustered trying to remember my login info that I just give up and do nothing until the cycle starts all over again.
Yeah, that's why I don't have any money in my bank account. Also, why won't my cactus stop growing? It's cute, but it's getting too tall. It's precarious. Can you trim a cactus?
And while we're at it, who authorized the disturbing softcore muzak you're forced to listen to while on hold with your gynecologist?
Of all the times. Have such a good day. Hello, world, and welcome back to Have Such a Good Day, the show that wants you to do just that.
I like try to feel your vibes. Are you gonna go up? Are you gonna go alto? Are you gonna go
Is
soprano?
Sarah a songbird today, or more of a Marlene Dietrich?
Hey y'all, how's everyone doing today? Are you having such a good one? Welcome to the show, episode 187. I'm Heather Frank.
I am Sarah Lane.
This is the show that unpacks the absurdity of everyday life for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Small talk and big talk and all the talks in between.
We do all the talks. I was told recently, Heather, speaking of that, because I say sometimes when I'm just trying to summarize in a conversation, I go, all the things.
Mm-hmm. All the things.
And somebody recently said to me, it was like, I love how you say all the things. That's so,
all the time.
That's such a Sarah thing. And I'm like, oh, is it? But I never really thought about it until now when I hear other people saying it. I'm like, oh, no. It's not just
You're
me.
like, that's so me.
I got this from, other people,
100%.
obviously.
I say that a lot too.
It's like,
it's like at the end of the day, all the things.
Yeah. 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 So all the things at the end of the day, when all things are said and
when
done.
all else fails, what is the Hell in a Handbasket? Hey, y'all out there that are listening,
love Hell in a Handbasket.
If there's, it's my favorite. So if you guys hear us, maybe this could be like a drinking game or something. We could also drink, root beer flavored kombucha, but maybe you guys can let us know what little idioms and expressions that Sarah and I, maybe we say it as not ad nauseum. Maybe we have our favorites. I mean, you guys would know. You listen to the show. What do we say way too often?
Yeah, we should maybe do an annual poll of like
a straw poll.
What do Sarah and Heather say that is good? What do we say that is really grinds your gears? Great, Sanya. And whatever else, because
what soothes you?
Yeah,
I'd like to know.
Yeah. What soothes you?
Email us at have-such-a-good-day.com. But we were just referring to root beer flavored kombucha, and I wanted to mention, Sarah, it's really funny that that's a discovery for you, because I literally just discovered the Coca-Cola. It's a cola flavored kombucha.
That's right.
And it's totally bomb. And it has, I'm not sure about the root beer one, but the one I had has
no
all
sugar
these
at all.
mushrooms in it. Yeah, no sugar, but all
well,
the
I mean,
mushrooms.
2 grams, but it's not
really
like
low
drinking a
sugar.
Coke.
But does it have all those adaptogen mushrooms, like the reishi and because that's the one I had. It was had more shroom action in it.
So for anybody who's like, what are you talking about? So the kombucha journey that I've been on has been, we're going on 20 years. Not even kidding. And when I first discovered kombucha, it was when my dad was still alive, but he had cancer and he was having a really hard time keeping things down, digestion. He had stomach cancer, so, kind of how it goes. Mm-hmm. But he had discovered this brand called GT's Kombucha. Now, GT's, probably not in every shopping center in the world, but pretty easy to get.
It's pretty mainstream.
At the
now,
time, it was sort of a little known weird brand out of LA
True.
that didn't even have, all that much, distribution. It was you could it got into Whole Foods eventually, but even before that, I had to go to a co-op to get it. And my dad had told me, I don't, because he was trying kind of everything, but the sink to try to, eat and, get calories. And he was like, sometimes I can't even drink water, but I can drink this. You know, there's something about it that like soothes my stomach. And so because of that, I became sort of a believer in this particular brand. Well, over the years, I mean, I would buy cases of this stuff. It's not cheap. You know, we're talking $4 to $5 a bottle, you know, and
It used to be more like $3. I feel like back in the day when it first came out, it wasn't. It's really more expensive now, like everything.
Yeah, I used to like I would go crazy when I'm like, oh my god, I can get like a case for like $3 a bottle. Like I'm gonna buy like 3 cases, you know, and like save $12 overall type thing.
Totally.
But after a while, it kind of, I don't know, it became cumbersome to like keep chasing after this drink. And you know, I can also just drink water. Thankfully, water does not, you know, it doesn't disagree with me. And just sometimes sparkling water is all I'm really looking for. Like I'm looking for like water plus.
Yeah.
But every so often, you know, if I'm at the grocery store and something that has the GT brand,
and you got a hankering for like just a different drink, or
you want something that's like refreshing but not super sugary. I don't want a soda. I don't drink soda. And it's, you know, and there were so many more kombucha brands at this point. And the last time, well, okay, not the last time that I bought it, but there were, you know, it had probably been, let's call it a year or so. And I was just kind of off the kombucha train for a while. And, you know, I picked up one of my my favorite flavors, and I looked at the sugar content and I was like, whoa, holy balls. It used to be like 2 grams per serving and 2 servings per bottle. So you're like, okay, 4 grams of sugar in a whole bottle, which is like very hydrating, not a big deal. And now it's like 20. And you know, I'm like, oh,
that's
like,
too much.
Why would you do that? And the weird thing is, it doesn't taste more sugary to me. My palate like doesn't know the difference because it just tastes like kombucha. But I'm like, I don't want to drink 20 grams of sugar. Like that's totally different to me. Like, yeah,
that's obscene.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get my sugar in other ways, but I really don't like drinking sugar. I just don't.
I don't either.
There's something weird about it. Like
I'd rather
hurts
eat
my
cookies.
teeth. Yeah. So I haven't really been, you know, hanging out with GT's kombucha anymore until the other day at my local mini mart, of all places, which doesn't really have like a lot of health food. They had this new line, which is like the cola, as you mentioned, Heather, and the root beer kombucha. That's like the new thing is like mushroom elixir.
Yeah,
and the whole
it's all
idea
about
is that
mushrooms.
you're supposed to, I don't know, like be happier and healthier, you know. And
like
who
all the
even
different
knows
mushrooms,
if that stuff like even comes through in like a probiotic.
I mean, I just wonder about any supplement. I mean, sure, we get various nutrients from food. So I would imagine that different kinds of mushrooms might have different qualities. We're just kind of trusting that they do. But, you know, like one is for stamina, like another one might be for brain, I don't know, brain fog. I don't know.
There's a lot
things.
to that, but it's also like, you know how there is, you know, people talk about like, when you eat yogurt, right? It's like, oh, it's really, you know, it's good for the gut. You know, it helps, keep candida away. You know, there's all sorts of things, health things that are touted by eating or drinking certain things. And it turns out that sometimes that's true. And sometimes because of like the pasteurization process, there's no way that's true. It's just something that, you know, maybe it's not FDA approved or whatever that you can claim. And then in the fine print on the back of the label, it's like not FDA approved.
I know.
So there's a lot of that stuff, and I feel like it needs to work for you. You know,
it does. And the thing is, but even let's say you drank one, I don't even know if you're having such a small amount, like such a trace amount of these shrooms. Like, is it even effective? I don't know.
I don't either.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, the whole micro dosing thing.
Yeah.
Popular in certain circles. I mean, I'm not on that train, but I also I have upstairs in my apartment, I have some matcha tea that's supposed to be like, you know, with cordyceps in there, like
totally.
for your health. And I'm like, okay. I mean, if it doesn't hurt, then okay. It doesn't bother me to
Isn't
ingest.
it funny how these things just go in these waves? It's like these trends, it's so bizarre how it all kind of
Well, a lot of it
cycles
is
through.
designed to sell things.
I know.
And but again, people have such different. I mean, I've got friends who have dairy allergies or gluten allergies, or maybe not even allergies, intolerances. I know there's a difference. I luckily, well, I probably do have some, but I've never really been able to pinpoint them. But like, luckily, it's never anything where I'm like, ooh, I ate that awful thing with dairy in it that I shouldn't have, and now I'm like very, very ill. But that happens. So it's like, if you find the thing that works for you, then great.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not making you smarter. Maybe it is. But if it's not making you sicker, then I think it's a win.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if you enjoy it and it's not hurting anybody and it's not hurting your gut, then
right. Like
then
you're
great.
not like sitting there, like after a cup of the tea I just mentioned, like I'm not like tripping. No.
And, well, of course
I
not.
don't feel any different at all, to be honest.
It's not like psilocybin in there, but I would say that my only concern with this stuff, and I do take some supplements that aren't FDA approved, and I sometimes think when I take them in the morning, I'm like, man, we're going to hear a couple years down the road that this such and such, gut probiotic thing that I've been taking for like a year now is like, really bad for you. Cause like, that's what you heard, like historically there were, milk was bad for you, eggs were bad for you and all these things. And then it changes. It just depends on what's going on in the world. And I don't know, we're not a very trustworthy species sometimes.
There are times, like I remember, this is so random, but we are random on the show, so let's keep it up. I remember at one point you and I, cause I run hot. Like I'm a hot girl, obviously, but like I physically run hot, especially at night. And I remember you and I, Heather, talking about like different deodorants, and you were like, oh, I don't do antiperspirant. I only do deodorant because antiperspirant isn't good for you. And I was like, oh, it's like because of like the metal or whatever. Like it's like has been linked to not great, like dementia stuff.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, well, I need to not sweat all day, so I guess I'll just take my chances.
Yep.
Just the other day, I was talking to somebody else because they had gotten a certain deodorant brand that I had not heard of, and I was like, wait, there's no antiperspirant in here, though. Did you get it wrong? And they were like, no, I don't do antiperspirant. It's not good for you. And it reminded me exactly of the conversation that you and I had. Not that you were the first person to say that to me.
Sure, but that's the one that stuck out.
It was just something where I was like, okay, let's think about all the times that we just kind of like say, I'm willing to take my chances. Because it has to work for me like now.
Yeah, because we know this now at this age. More and more, it's like banging it over my head is that nothing is perfect, and there's gonna be pros and cons to everything. So yeah, you have to kind of pick and choose. Like I'm gonna have this vice of, having my wine, 3 to 5 times a week if I want to. I might just have a glass or whatever. But yeah, okay, a little amount is bad for you too, I guess. Now that they say, I'm still gonna drink it because you know what, I gotta enjoy my life.
I mean, I just read something the other day about, resveratrol and, how great, a very small amount of red wine is for you, even though red wine personally gives me a horrible headache no matter how much I drink. So it's like, well, great.
Well, it makes sense, though. If you think about, we are not robots. I say this a lot, but we aren't. We are
individuals.
Flesh and blood. We make mistakes. We are smart creatures in a lot of ways, and we've come up with some brilliant ideas and things, but there's not a perfect answer to anything other than the sun's going to go up and the sun's going to go down. The yin and the yang.
Yeah.
That's all
Once
I can
the sun
really
doesn't come up, then let's worry.
I'm hipping out here, Sarah.
I know. We totally are. I mean, listen, I'm a person who, even though I love sparkling water, I have a soda stream. Like, I'm also like a tap water drinker. I just don't give a fuck.
You know, here's the thing about the Soda Stream. I'd like a little moment here to have a little sidebar about that little machine. So I was gonna buy one for my boyfriend's. I think it was his birthday back in February, and I looked at them at Target, and I was like, yeah, because we drink a lot of Waterloos and various like sparkling water. I'm like, well, why don't we just make our own, and then we don't have to like throw the cans away. But my issue with it ultimately was that it's just another appliance to have on the counter to clean the filters, to replace the filters, to like something.
Well, and
that
you have to have
do.
the canister to make,
Yes.
like, that's the thing. I used to, so I heard about the Soda Stream, which I know there are other brands, but for anybody who's like, what are you talking about? It basically makes sparkling water out of the non-sparkling water.
Yeah,
right.
it
And you can
infuses
also do
it.
that with, like, I don't know, orange juice if you want to make it sparkly type thing without having to manually
It
add
just
it
like puts
yourself.
oxygen in it, right?
Right. But you need a canister in order to do that. It doesn't just magically happen. And I didn't really
that be cool?
realize that. I have one now. It was gifted to me. Really, really nice gift. And I, you know, I'm happy to have it. But like you said, it takes up space.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want to like put it away. Like, I drink sparkling water like every day. Like, I don't want to like treat it like, I don't know, like I don't know.
It's kind
Just
of a
one of the
task.
many things that I don't want
You
to
have
look at
to
on my
think
counter
about.
all the time.
Yeah, it's so totally like I have a food processor that I
Food
got for my
processor,
birthday.
good example.
Yeah, and it's like I don't have it on the counter because it does take up space, so I put it in the cabinet. But like last night's a great example. I made pasta and I made this yummy like asparagus chicken, like asparagus in the garden.
Look at you.
Greens. Yeah, like everything was like kind of homemade. I mean, I didn't didn't raise my own chickens, but you get the point. And then, I got like Rao's like tomato sauce in the jar, and we were talking about it at dinner, and I'm just like, oh man, I totally forgot. I could have just used my food processor so easily and made my own sauce.
Yeah.
You know, and I forgot because it wasn't right there. And it was just like easier to just get something packaged. But
There's also like a yes. So I'm with you on that. My food processor is currently in a corner of my kitchen. My kitchen is not large, but you know it works for me. But it's in the corner of my kitchen that I don't need that corner, and it's fully because I don't have really room for it in a cupboard, and it's heavy, and it's just like one more
is.
thing to like put away. I've talked to friends over the years, like people have different schools of thought. Like, what should a kitchen, like a living kitchen, a kitchen that you really use? Like, let's say you cook, you know, you want to be in the kitchen, you want to experiment, you want to have fun in there. Like, what does your kitchen look like? I'm sort of the thought of anything I'm using more than a couple times a week stays out.
yeah, 100%.
Because putting it away every time, like I know it
Yeah.
looks pretty, but like, who's it looking pretty for?
This is why I don't use my juicer. And it's like I want fresh juice. I end up getting fresh juice like carrot juice, you know, beet, you know, apple, that kind of thing. And I get it at my little local co-op and I just buy it because I also just like cleaning all this stuff. It's the upkeep. And I think it's hard to keep up with all the things every day. Like even just in the morning, the first thing I do, like I've said on the show ad nauseum about my espresso maker, I make my espresso, but it's a process. I have to, you know, I got to fill it with water. I have to steam the milk. I have to like pack it. Like it's not like it's hard.
It's a ritual. It's a
a
fun
ritual.
one because you know what you're getting, but like it's not like a
I don't
plug
want to
and
do it
play
all day
situation.
long. Like I don't want to just like, and then an hour later make a juice, get out the gear and like wash it. It's just like, it
You
adds
kind of have to
up.
pick and choose.
You pick and choose, exactly. And I can see myself. It's funny, you mentioned the triggering of memory talking to me about this stuff. I remember you telling me about how your mom sets up her coffee maker at night just so it's like so easy. It's just like a button. And I'm like, I'm going to be like that one of these days where I'm going to give up my espresso machine.
It's gotten worse. I don't know
Uh-oh.
that we've talked about this. And Linnell, I love you so much. You're the best mom in the world, but I'm going to blow up your spot. So my mom not only does not grind her coffee beans right before making the pot of coffee, which is the best way to do it.
Yes.
Used to be the night before, because she's like, who wants to grind beans? You know, when you wake up and you're awake for 5 minutes, like, who wants to do that? I'm like, well, I do, because it means it's fresher. And she's like, oh, please.
Tastes better.
You don't know. Like once the, coffee is brewed, you don't know the difference. And I'm like, probably true. But I, want to do that. She no longer even buys whole beans. She buys already ground coffee because she can't be bothered.
I mean,
and
I
you know
think
what?
that's what happens.
I salute you. I salute
you too, Linnell. Always and forever.
I mean, I can't, like, I'm not ready for that yet, but
No, I'm not ready.
I probably am going to be there.
But you can wrap your head around that time is one of these days, hopefully further down the road. Please, I beg of you. But Sarah, so what else has been going on at the old homestead? Anything exciting?
Well, this is sort of like, okay, I don't want this to be like a really sad story, but y'all know that I'm moving. The owners of where I'm living are selling the property. I've known this for some time, and, there's been some, things that have happened, because you got to get ready and all that stuff. And what did happen, and, this is not me, like, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, and I don't think I am. So if you disagree with me, please email us hi@havesuchagoodday.com. Mm-hmm. But the other day, I left, because I work at home. Like, there are days where I don't ever leave the property. Like, if I don't need groceries or coffee beans or, whatever, I just kind of don't leave. Unless, maybe I'm walking Otis the dog or whatever. And as I'm driving out, there's this big for sale sign, like right by the mailbox, like clear as day, like, whoa, and I immediately texted my landlord, and the realtor is a nice person, and I've been working with him, and we've been kind of just figuring out like what's best for everybody type thing, in our sort of limbo situation that we're in. But I didn't hear anything about this, so I texted my landlord. I'm like, did you know about this? And he was like, well, I mean, I didn't know exactly where he was going to put it, but I mean, that's kind of what happens when you sell a property. And I was like, no, I know. I just, it like, there's like a big stake in the ground, like a big sign. And like someone was out there for like more than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't know, and it just like feels weird, like I felt like, I don't know, like violated in a weird way.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
And so that's going on, and now, because the sign is out there, you have no idea how nosy my neighborhood is. Now, I love my neighbors. Well, I don't love all of them. Some of them are totally psychotic, but I love most of my neighbors, and I know a lot of them. I've gotten to know them. I walk my dog 2 or 3 times a day, or, I'm coming and going, and, we see each other at, the market and whatever. And, within like 12 hours of that sign being put up, I got no less than 4 texts from neighbors. Some of those neighbors, I'm like, how did you even get my number? And it was like, oh, so-and-so gave me your number. Desiree down the street told me that, this was your number. Is it okay that I text you? Oh, Desiree. That didn't really bother me. But it was basically people being like, well, why are you leaving? Because a lot of people don't realize that I don't own this property.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They think because I'm the one who lives here. Mm-hmm. Other people come and go, Airbnb stuff. But it's like, if you don't really know me that well, you don't know my situation. You don't know that it's not just like my friends coming for the weekend type thing. And I can't believe you're already selling, and where I'm like, it's been 3.5 years that I've lived here. I have not lived anywhere besides living with my parents as a child for 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. My entire adult life. It was always like 2 years or less.
And that's not that long.
It's not that long, but like to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're saying that I'm already leaving? Like I just got here. I feel that way. I think COVID has a lot to do with it because it has messed with, our clock mind in many ways. And also like just like my like weird health issues. Like my life has been weird for the last
Yeah.
3 years. No bones about it.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Totally. So yeah, and yeah, I'm certainly not alone. But yeah, so a lot of people kind of just being like,
They're nosing around.
what, yeah, like what's up? So what, and I won't go on and on about this because, there's probably more to the story. We'll talk about it next week. But there's going to be an open house of which my apartment will be part of. And, I already said to the realtor, like, should I like take down like personal photos? Like, I know that I can't be there. I'll get my cat and my dog out of there and, I'll deal. I can do that. But like, they're gonna take picture, like people will do that.
Yeah, it's
and
maybe
like
a
that's weird. Like, but also like
personal.
I'm not required to stage my house because I already live in it. But I also I don't want people to like see my personal life.
Yeah.
And I had talked to the landlord, and he was like, I mean, Sarah, I think this is pretty standard. And I'm like, I know it is. And I've been through this before, in fact. Like I've been a tenant when a place was getting sold before I moved out, before, where like I had to just be like, okay, we're going to have an open house, and I'll either like be here and like nice in the corner or just get out of here. But yeah, it's a very strange end of an era that we're
I was
dealing
going to say,
with right
it's
now.
like you're kind of inching toward this thing you've been knowing is going to happen, and now it's finally starting to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like the reality has really set in.
The reality is reality. Yeah. So so anyway, that's what's going on at our homestead, but what's going on at yours?
Well, we got back from the desert about I guess a week and a half ago, and it was a great trip. I didn't talk much about it, I don't think, but it was a lovely little spring break, I guess. And Elijah, my boyfriend, was a little nervous about leaving Frank the dog, Frank the tank, I like to call him. He's a Chihuahua Terrier that he found in Pasadena. Little tank. He's a tiny little tank, tiny little duder, and he basically just approached his car 15 years ago in Pasadena. Just, it was a completely random thing. My Elijah was not looking for a dog, but he kind of just like immediately they just bonded, and so it's been this buddy of his for 15 going on 16 years. So he was part of the family. I've only known of Frank for, let's say, close to 4 now. I met him in LA, and it was a fast love. And I'm not used to having a dog. I haven't had a lot of dogs myself. I've mostly had cats, but he's the smallest critter in the house. I have 2 cats that are like double his size. So he's a small dog. And he did pass away. Like I said, we were a little nervous about leaving because he was, some of his like eyesight and, hearing was going over the last 6 months or a year, but he was still spry. He was still kind of zipping around, and he was fine. He didn't have any health problems. But, we were just starting to get like, maybe we shouldn't leave for very long. And, it's kind of it can be a slippery slope. And so when we came back, he was okay. There was no emergency. It's just that the week that I came back, which was, I guess last like a week ago yesterday, and he just kind of started like every day, just kind of got a little worse. And basically some of his organs were failing, and it was just a slippery slope, like I said. And we knew the day would come soonish, but it could have been a couple more years. Little dogs like that can live until 20. He was going on 16, lived a very good life. Like I said, he wasn't sick. He just kind of died of old age. We had to put him down. And so it was this, I've only had to do that one other time with my cat, Oscar. Sarah, you remember, because you babysat.
Yeah.
Or you cat sat him. And, it's been a long time since I did that. That was a long time ago. So like my memories are a little faded, but you had to go to the vet. We made an appointment. It was a whole thing. And this was obviously way more impactful for Elijah because he's been in his life for 15 years. And more attached, even though I will say I was really surprised at the level of kind of, I don't know, like I was sad. I really was struck by how attached I was to him. I didn't really realize how attached I had gotten to him, especially moving up here and, the last couple of years, the pandemic, like he's just become such a part of the family, and so, it was a sad but kind of weirdly beautiful day on Saturday when we put him down because, obviously it's very heart-wrenching, but we ended up burying him in our like heather garden in the back, which is where Oscar's buried. You have to kind of keep these things light sometimes, and I had to make the joke about it becoming a pet cemetery, but I'm gonna miss the little dude. He's got a great little spot in the sun, which he loved, and I'm gonna miss his his little noises, his sighs, and the little
You
nails
loved that dog.
tapping on the hardwood floor. Yeah, no, he was a special little guy, and I think the last thing I will say is that each of these animals, I mean, it really is so striking, these experiences, because every one of these animals is different. They all are different little people. And just, he was a very unique little pooch. And I mean, you could say that about all your animals. And I would say that about
100%.
every animal that I've ever had and every animal I've ever met. So yeah, it's always a hard, like, hurdle, and time is the only thing that will help. But that ritual where you get up in the morning and you take him out, and then at night you take him out, and then you put him in the bed, and then he sleeps with you, and the morning and the evening, it's just so strange. It almost feels quiet around here.
Yeah.
And he's like a tiny little dog, but he really had a big heart, and he filled the space in a lot of like special ways. So we're kind of, reeling from that. We'll be okay. This is just what it is when you have pets. They don't have long lifespans, and it's just life, Sarah. So yeah.
I know I mean, I always say to myself, having cats and, now a dog, I'm like, we're lucky if we get a decade.
Yeah, for sure.
And, my cat Sam, who obviously you knew, he lived to 12. My cat Lucy lived to 14. Otis is, well, we don't totally know, but he's like 6-ish.
Okay.
Ralphie the cat, also don't know because he was a shelter cat. He's probably 8 to 9 years old. Like, I know what I'm signed up for. Yeah. But it doesn't hurt any less.
No, it doesn't.
When you're like, oh man, like you're part of me.
Yep.
And I'm part of you. And it's so sad when you're like,
it's like your purpose, your identity, like he's ingrained into your
and
really is quite
and their little,
extraordinary.
Idiosyncrasies, which
Totally.
Every animal has, for better and worse. Heather's cat attacked her right before we started.
Yeah,
recording,
I literally
so.
have. I'm still like dabbing the blood off my hand. Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll talk about it on another show. But yeah, it was a bit of a dramatic start. But life is strange. Life can be really strange, Sarah, as we talk about on the show a lot.
Yeah.
And
let's hear.
Yes, and the surrealness, and I think losing a pet and experiencing what that I guess philosophical, psychological experience of losing a pet. It's very surreal, and it really makes you appreciate the important things. And lately, I will say, speaking of weirdness, I am catching myself saying some of these things a lot lately, just kind of like, well, the dark comedy keeps writing itself. And I guess in another episode of The Twilight Zone or a Todd Solondz movie, it's like it starts to feel, there's times that feel so extra bizarre. And I don't know. And I think that's probably normal in the universe. We live in a strange universe. And, like, maybe, maybe the earth is indeed spinning out of control. Like, you read a lot about post-pandemic just stuff and climate change. Maybe we're spiraling a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I had too much mushroom coffee. Maybe it's just like age. Maybe it's like you see too much. Like you're witnessing, sort of a depth of reality that you aren't used to. And I think for me, the reason why I bring this up is because, it's been 2.5 years since I've been running this business up here in the Northlands for my dad. This is my dad's business. And,
Right.
I knew that every year would have kind of a theme. It's like I got us to this point. We are, I don't know if I'd say we're well oiled, but like I've got this handled.
Yeah.
However,
You know what you have
it's
to do, however hard
to
it
get the
is, you're
job
doing
done.
it.
Exactly. However, there's this new can of worms. Speaking of an expression that I say a lot lately, is that because we're at like another phase, and we have these properties that have been kind of band-aided over the years. We have some of our buildings. I found out recently one of our Victorians is from like the late 1800s, so it has this old foundation. And there's just these things where it's like, oh wow, like didn't know there was a storage unit in that, in that structure.
Yeah.
Things that is like very kind of unraveling more and more and more weirder stuff, like whoa. And we've been trying to meet with some new people to work with, like contractors and that kind of thing, and every person we meet is just gets weirder and weirder, like just the connections and just the cartooniness of it. It's hard to explain. You have to kind of be there in the room. But yeah, just like one little problem that kind of turns into this very complex thing you have to navigate. And
Yeah.
it's just both, I like my sister's up here right now and we both just like laugh about it. We're just like, this is just too much sometimes. Like, are we like, are we in a movie right now? Like it really kind of feels like that sometimes. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if this is just like part of, maybe I watched too many movies, like maybe I should have been a lawyer. Maybe I just need a massage. I don't know. Email us at hi@havesuchagoodday.com. Let us know what you think. Maybe I just need a good night's sleep. And I need to cut back on the coffee. I don't know, but it's been a wild one. What about you, Sarah? Do you have any extra weirdness abounding currently?
Kind of. Well, so I mentioned that one of the well documented side effects of chemo, not necessarily every kind of chemo, but the kind of chemo that I had gotten for breast cancer, was peripheral neuropathy. And so, that means basically like extremities, like hands and feet can go numb and or not work that well. And, I never experienced any of that until probably about I'd say a solid month after my last chemotherapy appointment, to the point where I just thought like, well, that would suck. Glad I didn't get that. Got lots of other things, but I did. And it's actually gotten worse. I would not say this is debilitating, because when I'm vertical, meaning like I'm sitting or standing up, everything's fine. It's when I lay down, it doesn't happen right away. But if I'm like comfy and cozy, either on the couch or in bed or whatever, but horizontal, with a pillow, I'll wake up, go to sleep, and I wake up later and my hands don't work. And like, it's not just like, oh, my hands don't work. It's like I can't feel them, and they also hurt.
That's a strange feeling.
It's very hard to explain. It's like there's like a pulsing pain, but I also can't, like, I wouldn't be able to like pick my shoes up and put them on and tie my shoes.
God.
Now, once I stand up for a minute, then things start, flowing again, and I'm good. but yeah, it's pretty awful. And I want it to go away as soon as possible. And from what I've heard, and everybody cross your fingers and your toes and knock on all the wood, that this is just something that is
Will
just part of the
pass.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what sounds like for most people is this does pass. It's like a 3 to 5 month, just kind of shitty thing that happens. And then a few people, a much smaller amount of people say, oh, well, it never went away. So I don't know.
I'm sure like some exercise or some like PT, like or not necessarily PT, but just some kind of
No, I'm already doing
circulation.
PT.
Oh, you
And
are? Okay.
yeah, it's it's just in the interest of full disclosure, telling y'all about it. It fucking sucks. And I knew what neuropathy was before, kind of, just because I'd heard of it, especially with like people who have like type 2 diabetes. Very, very common thing that you get, especially in your, legs and feet. I did not know how awful it was, to the point that, I'm trying to get past it.
Yeah.
But
I think you will. I think you will.
thank you. I do too, and we will keep on the up and up.
We will. We will. Or at least we'll try. Sarah, do you want to read an email that we got from a?
Yes, Heather, I do. This is the great one. This comes from JF. JF told us their name, but I'll keep it to what you signed your email
Revealed,
with.
yes.
JF says, I was super surprised to hear from Heather that there's been an opinion that French is on the uprise. JF is talking about our recent episode. If you didn't hear it, Heather said apparently her French degree is not as, throwaway as it used to be. JF says the place of French here in Quebec, especially its precarity as the main language spoken by the majority of the population, has been a subject of constant debate for centuries at this point. Its usage is monitored and reported on almost daily in the news. For example, about a month ago, the Ministry of French Language posted a fake PSA on the status of the peregrine falcon. In the video, they used English words that are creeping into everyday Quebecois slang such as sick, insane, and sketch. The goal was, of course, to liken the endangered status of the French in North America to the falcon. The ad itself was met with mixed reaction, but still made the rounds in Quebec media, both Anglo and Franco, for weeks. Experts, pundits, debating on panels, politician interviews, Vox Pox reactions, you name it. So yeah, I was pretty surprised to hear something about French being on the uptick. JF concludes with, Heather, I'm curious about whether there was content in your Bachelor of Arts, the college degree
BA.
you got, specifically about Canadian and Quebecois French, or its cultural and historical significance in North America, like northeastern states demographics, Acadian deportation, New Orleans, etc.
Cordialement, JF. JF, thank you for writing in about that. Super interesting. In fact, I just want to say really quick before I forget, it sounds like there's the slang is happening, which happens everywhere. There's different slang in different regions. I'm not super familiar with the Quebecois French. It's a definitely kind of a different dialect. But the fact that they're using like American slang, the sick, insane sketch. I love franglais, and it's kind of a thing that I don't like to talk about that much because I know that like French people are very precious about their language.
Get a little,
and
irritated.
Yeah, I can see how it would be irritating for like a French person, but it's so much fun because it's just fun. I can't explain it. I really enjoy. I do have a friend who is American and she speaks really good French. And so we franglais it up all the time. It's very fun. And I do love the slang. But in terms of studying Quebecois culture and language, what I really remember more vividly, funnily enough, than college French is high school. I remember studying Quebecois culture a lot in high school. I remember my, I was in sort of AP French like the last like 2 or 3 years of high school. And, so my teacher really covered the bases. Like I felt like we learned about all different kinds of, culture and society, any kind of French culture and society. And it was really cool. Like that's one of the reasons why I think I majored in French, because I loved the sort of diversity of like study, of the not just the language, but the culture and society. I don't remember a lot specifically. I haven't been to Quebec. I've been to Montreal, but I would love to go one of these days. I know like some things about the food. You do learn a lot about food in French. I even remember in my recent tutoring, we had so many chapters on like French African food, like in French, like learning about how to speak about that type of food. So, food is very important to French people, and I would say most cultures. But I do recall a lot of food speak, not as much like political stuff or, I guess like, more like regional types of like anecdotes and that kind of thing. But I do know that it is definitely, I think if I did go to Quebec, it would be harder for me to speak and understand because of how different it is in terms of like a dialect.
Or they'd say, you speak French, but like we know you're not from around here.
Exactly. I mean,
Which
I'm
is,
sure
I
that
mean,
I sound very American.
The dialects, I have to say, like first of all, thank you so much for writing in, JF, because I sometimes think about that too. I'm actually watching a show called 100 Foot Wave. I've talked about it before on the show. It's a surfer show. If you don't like surfers, don't even bother. But we're in season 2 now. It's really good. And there are a lot of, because this is not a spoiler, but the main part of the show takes place at the certain wave break in Portugal. So you get a lot of people speaking Portuguese, and I'm like, oh, it's so different than Brazilian Portuguese, which Brazilians will tell you all day. And I kind of liken that to like, if you live in Quebec and you're like, oh yeah, the like French is different than our French, even though it's the same language. Like everyone's gonna understand each other, but then you think like French is an official language in many African countries. You got Cameroon, you've got Senegal, Rwanda, Niger, Mali, Madagascar, Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, the list goes on. So yeah, I think there's something to this, Heather, and because I love the language, I love that for us.
Yeah, no, I do too, and I'm really glad that I'm trying to stick with Duolingo. I am, I've kind of been frozen for like most of the week, but I'm trying to remember if Asterix and Obelix, it's like a comic book series. A lot of the comic books, the famous ones like Tintin and whatnot, a lot of it are Belgian. I don't know which ones came from Quebec, but I remember reading some, so I'll have to like look into that. But yeah, thank you so much for writing in. I really enjoy your emails, so keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming. No. I felt your heart there, Heather, for a second. So I was like, yeah, let's let that breathe for a second. But just a reminder, we don't like to belabor this too much on every show, but we are directly supported by our patrons. If you would like to become a patron, first of all, if you are a patron, thank you so much. We love y'all. If you would like to become a patron, patreon.com, patreon.com/have such a good day is where you can find out more about doing that. One of the fun things that you can do is jump into our Discord at the Patreon level of $5 or more per month and have a little bit of a, back channel conversation with us.
Yes, actually, we're kind of talking about some TV shows, Succession and whatnot. I am behind in episodes, so it's funny. I have not only like Discord, I know we have a spoilers channel, but I have a couple threads with some girlfriends talking about Succession. and I can't even, it like keeps like buzzing today, and I can't look because I haven't seen the episode. So yeah,
Get on it, Heather.
I know, I got to get on it. I had a really busy day today. Hopefully it'll kind of wind down as the week goes on. I'll definitely have time this weekend. But yeah, Sarah, it's been a good little yakety yak session with you, as always.
Agreed.
And one more thing I'd like to throw out there. I'm sure y'all can relate to this, but I mentioned on the top of the show how dizzying it can be with all these subscriptions, and I'm not just talking about subscriptions to things like Netflix and HBO, like streaming services. But there's the audio music services like Spotify and whatnot. And then there's the podcasting services. Then there's Audible for like audiobooks. And then there's like my Mushroom Coffee that is an auto pay subscription. And then I've got my actual coffee subscription. I get whole beans from a place in San Francisco. Sarah, you know it, Sight Glass. And it's on an auto pay. And the problem is when you leave, I was gone for almost 2 weeks, so I didn't drink any of the coffee here. And then I got another shipment, and now I have way too much, and I forgot to like pause it. It's like, it's just inevitable to, you can't handle all this stuff. I mean, you just literally can't. You'd be spending all day, every day managing your subscriptions. And half the time too, especially with streaming services, I have many emails. I have about 4 emails at least, and I use all of them. And then sometimes I'll use a new email to get the 10% off, or to, get the free month or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then I forget which email I used, and I can't even log in anymore. So I don't even, and half the time I don't even know where to cancel my service, because it's either it's in like the iTunes, or it's a Google Play thing, or it's, on the website itself, like the Showtime. It's so confusing. And so then I just throw my hands up and I just let them ride. What do you do, Sarah?
Well, sometimes the same as what you've described. There are other times where I'll like give myself a calendar reminder, like one day before this, cancel if you don't like it. Then that doesn't always work. The most recent one that really boiled my blood was Adobe. I had signed up for, it was Adobe, not Acrobat, because it's not, I don't even remember, but it was something where I was like, oh, this is like the best way for me to like annotate like PDFs kind of thing. Yeah. But I had to pay for it, and I was like, oh, I'll just like, sign up for the free trial and like do a couple things like for tax purposes, and then, bounce out of there. Did not read the fine print. And it turns out that like my penalty for signing out, like, or, for canceling it like before like the year was up, was more than what I would pay for the year. So I was like, oh, shit. Okay, well, there's no reason to do that. But I was like, Adobe, foiled again.
Yeah, totally.
Hate you guys. You know, like, come on. Like, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing.
Of course.
And I played right into your hand.
And I noticed too, like when you first become a member, like I've noticed with my 2 coffee subscriptions, they used to give you sort of like a heads up email. We're about to ship your next order, and then you have time to edit or cancel or whatever. They don't do that anymore. And so now I'm just like, holy crap. Like I gotta figure this out. I gotta like sit down and like write all of them out on a piece of paper, because I can't even remember half of them sometimes. It's something that we can talk about, on a later episode, because we're kind of winding down here, but I think it's a fun conversation. If y'all have any thoughts, please don't hesitate to email us at hi@havesuchagoodday.com.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram. I'm trying to resurrect our Instagram. And
I saw that, Heather.
I miss it.
And
I miss it.
You know what? Yes. Let's do it.
It's
Why not?
HSGD Show. At HSGD Show. Instagram.
And
join us.
Do join us. speaking of episodes, 187 is in the can.
It sure
I had
is.
fun. We hope y'all did too. Until 188. I don't know. I'm trying to think
Sarah,
of if that's
200. What are we gonna do?
We're
I don't know.
getting
We gotta
so
do something.
close. I know. Every week, I'm like, oh my
I'm
gosh.
ready. I am so ready. I am
Once
so
we
ready.
get to 190, I'm gonna be like, holy fucking shit. We're almost to
I know.
200.
I mean,
200
what, it's
episodes.
4 years? Like it's been like 4 years, I think. Close.
Started in 2017. That's when we started. I remember.
Amazing.
I remember.
Amazing. We're gonna keep on chugging.
All right,
As long as
well-
you guys let us.
Yep. As long as you're all here for the ride, we will keep on chugging. Until next week, I will remain Sarah.
And I will be Heather forever. Have
Such a good day.